Welcome to the Zoom Buzz.
Yes, sir. I apologize for being 2 minutes late. I only know how to use my iPad, and it was zeroed out, so I had to use Olin's charger.
Well, we'll start off with a question from Olin.
I think Travis should always go first.
Oof.
I'll be glad to defer to him.
I'm just picking at you, bro.
All right. Hey, do you got a sense that your guys are growing in confidence after the win, and then having played most of the game pretty well against LSU?
Yeah, I think the two things, Olin, that statistically stand out from our two games last week, and you know this because of how much we've discussed it, our turnover rate has been atrocious, and then our ability to keep the opponent off of the offensive glass. Those two things have been our Achilles heel. Just in those two games last week, we surpassed 14 teams nationally in our turnover rate, and we improved 17 teams nationally in defensive rebound percentage. It was the two lowest turnover games for us, 8 and 9. And then on the glass, we did a really good job on the offensive glass for us, but we did a distinctly better job than we've been doing of keeping the opponent off the offensive glass. And so as much as it is how many rebounds did we get or how many turnovers did we get, those numbers don't tell the whole story. The whole story is the rate at which you turn it over or the rate at which you give up offensive rebounds. And in those two categories, we were better than we've been all season long. And I think a portion of that is the consistency that we've had on a daily basis from our group in practice. And I think, like all coaches will say, how you practice is how you play. And I think that our 4 practices last week translated to the 2 games. So that does give you confidence, but it's a quote shirt. True confidence can only come from your work. And I think our guys have been much more consistent in their work.
And, it was about last year with about 10 to 12 games ago, Savion really kind of broke out, and here he's had 2 strong games in a row. Do you get a sense that maybe he's going to duplicate that from last year?
We're cheering for anybody, Olin, that can be the best version of themselves. Savion didn't practice yesterday, so we'll see how things go over the next 48 hours. Had some issues with his back, and so we'll see how that goes. But whether it's whether it's us shooting 22 free throws as a team or making 22 free throws, whatever those people are and those stats that contribute to winning, we're in need of all of it.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, Coach.
Yes, sir.
Let's go to Travis Brown from the Bryan College Station Eagle.
I'll bat 2 hole any day. It's great. When you're talking about improving turnovers, improving defensive rebounds, moving up in those national rankings, can you pinpoint anything in practice, a change, a drill that's improved that? Or is it just you've reached that point in the season where things are starting to maybe hopefully take hold?
Yeah, I think maybe it's a little bit of all of that, Travis. Our itinerary for practice has some variance in it. Probably doesn't have quite as much as you think. Some of the breakdown stuff that we do at the first 20 to 30 minutes of practice would be specific to an opponent. For instance, like for Vanderbilt, a lot of random ball screens for their guards. And then the second thing specific to Vanderbilt, 45% of their shots in SEC play have come from 3. So how are they getting those threes? What is their alignment when they're shooting those threes? And then what's happening relative to those random ball screens and the coverage behind it? And so, for instance, specific to Vanderbilt, those first 20 to 30 minutes of what we call pre-practice, it's cover 2 progression. Our defense, as you know, is called cover 2. So those things are different than they were for Kansas State. We emphasize rebounding at a very high level in our practice itinerary. And then as turnovers have continued to be an issue, we score every drill and every game with a turnover number included to reward those that don't turn it over, those teams, and then to penalize the teams that do. So I think maybe it's a little bit of both. I think we have been playing from behind, as you know, relative to how we handled the summer and the fall specific to the virus. So I think there is some level of, it's that time of year. I think it's to some level just continuing to emphasize those two specific things. So I think it's both.
And then you look across the country and there's other programs, other coaches that are dealing with COVID issues. It seems like for the most part, your group has been pretty solid in that regard. What can you say about your program, your kids, and what they've been able to achieve by staying healthy, at least as far as we can see?
I've just, thanks for saying that. Thanks for even noticing that. I do think our guys should be applauded relative to the efforts and the sacrifices they've made. And that is not to be judgmental of other programs or other teams. I think our staff from the very beginning of all of this, Travis, we've tried to be ahead of it. We've tried to educate our players probably almost in a classroom type setting. Once a week through Zoom, we did what I know I've told you about Tough Tuesday Talks, but we also did once a week COVID by the numbers was the title of it, where we just tried to educate our guys on what the virus is. The one thing that I would say, Travis, and I'm hesitant to even talk about it because it's like, I don't want to wish bad karma, but it's a virus and it can impact anybody. And it's not as if, it's almost like it's a ghost, like you can't see it, you can't touch it, you can't, like, oh, I'm about to get COVID. It's just, it's chasing a ghost. And so you just try to be as safe as you can, follow all the protocols. We have been very stringent in how we've handled things in our office, how we've handled things in our facility. Our administration has been superlative in supporting all of the different things that we want to try to protect our guys as best as possible. But again, I mean, literally things can change on a dime, as we all know, specific to what's going on in a pandemic. And so, but I do think that our kids have been ultra mature in how they've went about their business for us to even be at this point relative to what's transpired. That speaks to how serious they've handled everything.
And then one last follow-up. I know you've told us many times that a big part of the way you run your program is things like the Tough Tuesdays and the talks and sitting down and learning things about life as well as basketball. Has your focus in the past doing that been kind of validated by this year and what some of those talks have had to be and the fact that you have instituted that in your program, so there's space for that this year?
Well, yeah, I want to make sure I have humility in how I answer that question. Maybe our kids could answer it better. Maybe our current staff could answer it better. I'm not old yet, but I'm approaching old. And I think that some of our former players and former staff members could probably speak to how we go about things. I will say this, I coach less and less with each passing year of my career because I have become more convicted that I have been blessed way more than I deserve. And with that blessing comes a responsibility. And my responsibility is to push them to be the best they can be as a player. But it's not more important than my responsibility to push them to be the best student, to graduate, to be the best future husband, future father. And so I spend a lot of energy, emotion, and time based on my relationships with our players, our staff. You can tell by how our staff is comprised and the relationships that are long lasting, many of which eight of our employees started as students in our program. And so I think that speaks to the foundation of what our program is about. But I probably shouldn't say more than that because it sounds like I'm making it about me. Here, they're Get Better one-on-one. At Virginia Tech, they were Tech Talks. At Marquette, they were life lessons. And I will say that I have learned more from our kids over the last 9 months, probably than they've learned from me, just with all that has happened across the country relative to social injustice. And so those tough Tuesday talks have been tough for everybody involved. And it's been a very raw experience of learning things that my eyes haven't seen, nor have my ears heard, that have really changed my heart. And that's from the willingness of our kids to teach me.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, next up is Chip Howard from Sports Talk.
Buzz, looking at this Vanderbilt team, their record's not very good, but they are out rebounding the teams they play, and they're out rebounding them on the offensive board substantially. Plus, they're averaging like 74 a game. So, what do you look at when you're turning on the tape and watching this team right now?
Yeah, there's a few things, Chip, that I study. Obviously, relative to our issues, those are probably the things that I look at first. And then we do some maybe kind of how they present it to me. Our staff presents it to me, where we are not necessarily comparing, but the things that are correlate to winning. Where are we at? Where are they at? What do we need to concentrate on in preparation for the game? In some regards, from an offensive rebound perspective, we're very similar. We're tied nationally in that regard. And then I think the flip side, they can really score. And they can, yes, they score a lot of threes, but they can score in a multitude of ways. Obviously, Pippen can score, but he also creates easy opportunities for his teammates. So you're right in everything you said. And so we kind of study where we are relative to where they're best and what can we do to kind of shore up and accentuate where we're good versus stop them where they're good.
They've got a 6'9" guy that has attempted 53s and shooting 38% from the 3-point line. What kind of matchup problems does that present?
Yeah, really good player. I did not know him. Obviously, we were in Virginia, but he's from down the road here, and he has been the combination of those two guys. They're both very effective, but I think the kind of the layer behind that is the attention you have to give those two guys to prevent them from scoring, and what the other three guys are able to do, which I think you're able to see numerically, particularly in their last game against South Carolina.
I've got one more thing, and it had to do with the SEC Big 12 Challenge on Saturday. The SEC won 5 out of 9. I think that surprised some of us and some of the national people. What does that say, or does it say anything in particular about the league right now?
You know, Chip, one of the things that I study, give me just a second and I'll find it. Going into this week, the SEC has 3 teams in the top 25 in the net. We have 6 teams in the top 50, and we have 10 teams in the top 10. The Big 12 has double that in top 25, only 1 more in the top 50, and 7 total in the top 100. So obviously they're a very top heavy league, but like if you compare whichever leagues you want to, obviously I'm familiar with more, some of them more than others, but I think that's always a barometer, a true barometer of where is the league, not a specific team. There's always going to be the best teams in the league. There's always going to be the worst teams in the league, but are the best like the best in the country, and are the worst like the worst in the country? And I think that, I mean, I would say I haven't studied. They've probably been doing that the last 5. I don't know how long they've been having the challenge, but I bet if you looked at the last 5 years, I bet the margin has been plus or minus 1 is what it would average over the last 5 years. So I think it speaks to probably a lot of similarities within the league.
Thank you.
All right, next up is Andrew from Gig'em 247.
Yeah, Coach. JJ Chandler's obviously coming off a couple of big games, and I think he's only turned it over once in the last 3 games. Just what have you seen from him at the past couple of weeks or so?
I think he's been a key component over those specific games. I think he's playing with a much more clear mind offensively. I think he's kind of narrowed the lane in which he operates in offensively, which has helped him with the turnover rate. He's shooting more balls on purpose. We have encouraged that relative to the lane we suggested. Defensively, Andrew, from a position standpoint, like here's the ball and where are you supposed to be, Jay? You're in the other corner, you're on the ball, you're on the strong side. Positionally, he understands space defensively as well as anybody on our team. And, you know, he plays a lot of our full court stuff. He's always at the front because his instincts, along with his positioning, when his motor is running and his mind is clear, he's really good defensively. And I think he's played in that same sort of space offensively. You know, we put, you may remember the 3 he made right in front of our bench against Kansas State. That was a play we put in for him. You've seen a couple of plays, another play that is not just for Jay, it's for our perimeter players, but he's very effective. But he has, from a consistency standpoint, he's probably been the most consistent he's been since we've been here.
And then just looking at Scotty Pippen as well, building off of Chip's question, what makes him difficult to guard and what are kind of the keys to slowing him down?
Number one, I think he can play with both hands, and he can play with both hands very effectively. Number two, he can score on all 3 levels. And I think he doesn't get the credit because he's such an elite level scorer. He doesn't get the credit for how he creates for others. He forces so much attention, and for the roster complexion that they have, he kind of knows when he needs to shoot it versus when he needs to drive it versus when he needs to try to draw a foul versus when, let me see if I can get the defense into rotation and create something easy for one of my teammates. And he's got a Billy Tubbs, you guys may remember him, Olin does. When I was young, I was a manager at a small college in Oklahoma City. And when we didn't practice, I would go to Norman and watch Coach Tubbs's practice. And I'm not saying he liked me, but I thought the world of him. So when he would talk to me, I would always have like 2 or 3 questions already written down. And one of the things that he described when he was evaluating guards was the pace at which they played all the time. What was their pace? And he always referred to it as glide speed. Like when they're just gliding, what is their speed? Is it like out of control? Is it too slow? And I think Pippen's glide speed is like, he's right in the sweet spot of he's so good with the ball. Like, is he going real fast? Is he going real slow? He's just playing at his glide speed.
Appreciate it, Coach. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, next up is John Wilson from KBTX.
Coach, after the last couple of games that you've had some positive things happen, you've talked about your team being able to move forward and pick up and move forward as they prepare. As they've prepared for this Vanderbilt game, do you like the way that they're moving forward?
We got home, John, maybe 3 hours after I spoke to you on Saturday. We were off on Sunday. And then any day following a day off, one of our traditions is called Early Bird. That started in 2003. It was something that happened when I was an assistant at Colorado State because I was involved with the open assistance job at Baylor at that time. And it scarred my heart. So we never go in our program. We don't go 48 hours. In other words, normally if you're off on Tuesday, I'll see you guys Thursday afternoon. We never go 48 hours. So in my entire career as a head coach, we always have early bird. Our guys were great Monday morning. and we had a really good practice, 85 minutes yesterday. And to answer your question, we kind of started off where we left off in Manhattan. And that was 2 off days since that's happened last week, where we just started right back up where we left off, which is, I think, a portion of being able to go 1-1 last week.
All right.
Thanks,
we'll
Coach.
And we'll wrap it up with Mike Lucas from KAGS.
Hey, Coach, we saw it twice against Kansas State when Savion went to the post and did a little back to the basket move and finish.
Yeah.
You guys not getting a ton of production from your bigs offensively from that spot. Can we see Savion more often playing with his back to the basket closer to the rim?
You know, he's comfortable, even though you probably know it just as well as I do. He's kind of comfortable in that mid post area. You know, we run a lot of stuff for him at the elbow because he's not an elite level passer, but he's real close. Like he's got a good feel and a good vibe on this is the right play. You know, even on out of bounds under, he's all-time throw it in guy. The two plays that you're talking about, one was side out of bounds where he was the inbound, or he was not the inbounder. And that was because we were going to inbound the ball to him to then make the reads, which turned into a mid post and one to tie the game. And then the other play is one of our core plays. And we just inverted Save and Marfo. And as thankful as I am that Save made the basket, I wasn't concerned with Save making the basket. I was concerned with, could Marf make the right read to get Savion the ball in a position to make the basket? So it was the combination of both, what Marf did and what Save did. But yeah, I think, you know, we did some stuff. You remember last year, we run some of it for E-Man now, where we kind of throw that ball over there, not in the short corner, but not really on the post, just kind of in no man's land. And Save's really good at making a decision, even if that decision is for him to shoot it.
All right. That's all the questions we have. Thanks, Coach.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Have a
Coach.
good day.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, Coach.